Happy Sabbath, everyone. Today you get two for the price of one. Okay. You know, there has been a few voices who have been asking us to share some of our mission experience, and we have not uh, until now. Um, we don't wish to uplift ourselves in any way, but we wish to make a point by what we're sharing today. I hope it's uplifting and it's educational. It's definitely been educational for me putting it together. And it's just a tip of the iceberg. We have gone through, we have thousands of pictures, and we were out and about for, about 8 or 9 years. Mm-hmm. And so there's no way we can, in a few minutes, explain to all of what we have done or said or what's happened to us. But we want to share with you how God has led us to reach people. And we want to show some of the consequences for good that has come about by our interactions with people. And so we're both going to share some of our experiences and some of our pictures.
Okay. So I'm Edie. I went with David in 2015 to Papua New Guinea, and we used to live there in the jungle. You can see it by the river there, that we lived by the water. And so there are houses from both sides of the river, and we live on this side here where we are before. And every Sabbath in the afternoon, I would have children's story for the kids. So the kids that live on the side that we were, they were fine. The other ones from the other side, they would get their little canoes, they paddle theirs. Like I remember 5-year-old little girl just doing that kind of thing, crossing the river and coming to the other side. So for them to know what time the story was supposed to start, I used to have a whistle. And on top of the hill, we would, and the kids would know that it's time to come for the story time, and we'd do that. So we had this nice tree by the edge of the water, and it was nice, but it wasn't so big. And in Papua New Guinea, it's very hot, mostly the time of the year. So in the afternoon, like around 3 o'clock, was hot. We needed shade. That wasn't very big. So, and sometimes when the water goes very high, this area, it's covered by water. So we found out another tree close by that was a bigger one and had a better shade, and we were worshiping there every Sabbath. But someone wasn't very happy with that. And one Sabbath we got there, someone had put fire on the trunk of the tree, and the tree was down. We know how those things are. When you start doing God's work, Satan's not happy. But we kept doing those kind of things, and when the church story was, the children's story was ended, we'd go to church to have AUI program in the afternoon. And I was glad because all those children that they were there, they would follow me with the others to go to church. That was an invitation for them. I'm just sharing a few pictures. Then I'm going to transition a little bit to, I used to deal with the children and also with women most of the time. Most of them, they don't know how to read or write or anything like that. So we started doing classes for literacy class for adults, and most of them were women. Men, we only had one, and it was the one that used to work with us with the canoe. And then we can see we used to live on top of the hill and down there with the village, and for them to know what time the school would start. And this is the bell that we had is the same one that it used for church service. So people, a lot of them, they don't have watches or anything. People don't have much of idea what time it is. So we'd go there and bang, 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 and the sound would expand, and people would come to the school, and I had to go down because the school was down the river, and this was my classroom. It was made of mamas, and of course they had to bring their little babies. And women in PNG, they're not very free. They had to ask authorizations for the husband, for their husband to be able to attend school. And sometimes the husband would say, no, you're not going to go. We need to go fishing. We need to go doing some other work. And so they couldn't come. But I was impressed and happy to see that they wouldn't come just by themselves. The kids would come and see there is no place to even to sit down. But they were happy to be there. And the kids sometimes, there were kids running after each other during the class and others going outside. And so we'd do the best as I could to teach them like the first sounds of the words, B and A, B, or things like that, and little words. And then you see that they're paying attention. They used to have a little piece of board that
We
they
made
would,
chalkboards.
yeah, chalkboard, and they would put something on top of that. They had their pencils, and they would write the words. And our goal wasn't just to teach them how to read, but most of that, our goal was for them to go to the Bible and to be able to participate, and also to learn the things that they were learning in church, for them to go to the Bible and teach and learn themselves, to check. You know, like Apostle Paul said that the Bereans were noble than the others because they would go home and check what he was teaching. So our goal was that. And then in the end of the time that they were having these classes, we'd give them a certificate. And this was inside of our church before we had a roof on top of that. And then they would get a Bible. Each of them would get a Bible, which was something that they really would like to have. And then during the AY program, especially in the afternoon, when they would have like a little games, like who find this passage in a Bible? And then it was so nice to see one of my students stand up and read that passage and say, praise God, we're not doing here just for nothing. So now they can go to the Bible, they can study, they can learn things, and be a blessing to themselves and to the other people too. David also had his class. This school had basically 2 buildings, and my class was just with mamas, with the little babies, and his class, he had the ones like teenagers, or the other ones, they didn't have any kids. And they also learned. We had a side of the class that had place to sit down. The other ones are sitting just whatever they could find. But they were happy to be there. And unfortunately, Satan wasn't very happy with that either. So one time when they had the election, the government election, one of the men from that village, he became someone more known in the country, and he won the election.
He was elected to the capital city, to the government, the main government.
So the people were so happy, and one day we got to the school wasn't there anymore. You had metal roof, and someone, the drunk people, they said, we're so happy because our own family member here got a position at the government, that they came and destroyed everything. They took the roof, and then they just left the walls, and you couldn't use anymore. And so unfortunately, we had to stop school at that time. But thankfully, some of the sisters already knew how to read. So we hope that nowadays they're still practicing in those things. So David was giving some Bibles to the students also, and now it's his turn.
I just want to go back. On the chalkboard it says, "Wanam something wasem me, blut blon Jesus emteso. Wanam something wasem me, blut blon Jesus emteso." It's a song. And so what is it? What is it that washes me? It's the blood of Jesus, and that's it. And then it continues on the verses there, but that's what I can read. They were learning very practical things for worship in school. We were doing our very best to reach the people where they had a need. And one of the needs was literacy. And thankful for my wife for what she was able to do, and what I was able to do in helping the church members to read their Bibles. Can you imagine coming as an adult to church and you don't know how to read? How do you get to know God? If you can't read the Sabbath school, you can't read your Bible, all you can do is memorize the songs. And they loved to sing.
Yeah, they did.
And they sang and they sang. But the scriptures, there's so many of them, and many times we have a different verse every Sabbath. And so, how do they memorize that? And so, being able to read for themselves was so important. And so, one of the things that I used to do was preach. Um, and you can tell my shirt is wet there. It's not because it rained, it's because of how hot it is. There are some of you here who have been to Papua New Guinea, I think. Um, it is 2 degrees south of the equator, just north of Australia. It's hot. And we used to get 240 inches of rain a year where we were. Um, and and so it was just hot and steamy. We were in a jungle setting, swampy thing. Um, if you notice, who can see what's down in the corner? What is there? The dog is there. It was our dog. So I mean, even the animals come to church. Now the men behind, one is an elder, another one is a deacon. Um, we're we're we stepped into a church setting that had been um, established when I was a student missionary, and back in the 90s. And so we came there in 2015 to help to strengthen the work that had been done and had just kind of fallen away. And so, yes, we were going to churches. So there was on the May River 12 churches. We would go there on different Sabbaths and strengthen. We would preach. We would give lessons, teaching. But we couldn't do that by ourselves. This is a man we needed. And I had to show this picture because, do you see what that is? What is that? It's a papaya. Look how big that thing is. That thing is delicious. This is like sweet as honey. Well, that's our boat driver. His name is Micah Patel. And when we live in a water community, we need to travel by water everywhere. And we certainly didn't understand all the intricacies of how to safely pilot a boat, especially when we lived 200 miles from the nearest road. There was no maps so we didn't know all the little turns and corners. There's sunken logs, there's rocks, there's all kinds of things, hidden dangers in the water, including snakes that will drop in on you when you get close to the trees. And so we really needed a boat driver. But this is my point. Our needs brought us into contact with people. And when we are in contact with people, it gives us opportunities to share Jesus and to strengthen. And not only did we need a boat driver, we also needed a boat to get around. Because we had the hill, and that was it. That was the only place where there was grass to walk on. Everything else was mud and muck. And that's why I love that verse in Isaiah. How beautiful are the feet of them who bring good news. Because our feet was yucky, muddy. But God thought they were beautiful. This is a canoe that is under construction. We bought it and we had to complete it. But look how big it is. It was like 80 feet long. And we would go to town 4 times a year to get supplies, including the Sabbath school lesson. And we had to carry everything in the canoe that we needed. And then, I had to paint it too. That helps to keep it from getting water saturated. I thought you would enjoy seeing that. When we went to New Guinea, we didn't realize that the mission had just given a pastor to the area we were going to, and he was beginning to give revivals, and there was baptisms. Hundreds of people were baptized. Unfortunately, he wasn't good at discipling, and so we found that we took up the mission of visiting the people and trying to strengthen them. This is one of the deacons at one of the churches there, and you see me there. I am visiting him. I'm strengthening him. I'm giving him supplies. I'm in my boat that I brought from the U.S. You can see that I'm standing in it, and we were bringing hymnals, Snupala Ol Sing Belang Lotu, which means it's the new songbook for worship. That's what that means. And we're bringing them the Bible. We often had to travel in torrential rain, and I was caught in the rain. It was raining so hard that, but they came out and greeted us. We were able to give them the Bibles. It was it was late in the afternoon, so we were in a hurry, and they showered me with confetti. I felt like, well, who am I? And these are jungle people. I remember these were the villages that were cannibal villages when I was young, and the gospel had changed them, and they were so happy to receive God's word. So I'm sharing you these things. Another picture here, another one of the churches. They're so excited to receive supplies for worship. Imagine being a church, no one has a Bible, no one has a hymnal. All you do is you remember what was spoken to you a few times by the evangelist that came through. It's hard to really grow spiritually in that condition. Oh, I just threw this one in here. This is potluck. Is sago, which is the palm tree. Let me see. I have another picture. Yeah, this is what that is. It's the food of grubs and beetles. The ladies actually turn the sago tree into sawdust, squeeze out the starch, and then they dry the starch. And ladies, what happens when you put boiling water with starch? It gets thick. And so you have this gooey, starchy sack, is what it's called. And they eat that every day with dried fish or fresh fish, as you can see there. So I grew up vegetarian, and I would eat some fish from time to time because of the necessity of where I lived. Some of the things you need to do as you are fishing for the Lord, should say, throwing out the net. We came across Jacob Malio. This is a man of God. I am in awe of this man. He was one of the young men that we sent to school back in the early 1990s, and he got a little bit of an education, and he really developed a love for the Lord. And when he came back from school, and when Adventist Frontier Missions left the area, because we left in 1996, he became a missionary on his own, without pay, to his own people that scattered in the jungle there. And for years, he was working for the Lord without pay, without recognition, nothing. And he only had a 10th grade education. We came across him. He was still faithful. And it's by going from church to church, getting to know the people, strengthening them. And then we see how we can strengthen the church even more. Because we knew we were only there temporarily. And we knew that if we could send him to school to become pastor, he would be there for the rest of his life. When we were back home, he'd still be there. And so we sent him, Edie and I, of our own money, we sent him to school. And it's like the best investment ever. Because in the intervening time, there were other pastors after we left that were sent there, and they weren't faithful. They would come and the evil spirits are very strong there. And they were working with the evil spirits and casting spells. They were doing wicked things. And they were bringing down the church. But when Jacob came back, he has not compromised. He has remained faithful. And they're 17 hours ahead of us. So it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning there. But he has already had his sermon that he's preached there. So, a God pod. How many of you have heard of God pods? We gave out hundreds of God pods. God pod is for those of you who don't know, it is a solar device that will play the Bible. And this one had some Sabbath school materials. It had some health related materials and some health and some religious talks. And these things would go everywhere, and it's all in their language. And they would listen to it and listen to it. And wherever one of those would go, it seemed to like sprout a flame. And so that there were hundreds of believers that sprouted up all around in the swamps and all around in the mountains there. It's amazing. And these young boys become evangelists by just taking their device and playing it in another village, another house. It's amazing how the Lord used those things. Another thing, I'm going to speed up here. We had to build a house. Who do you think was some of our most, the men that we were able to hang out with the most? Those who we were employing. Who do you think was hearing about Jesus? It was these men. So we were able to and really invest in a few people. But the best investment was Jacob. And he's still bringing commerce to God to this day. And that's all I have for New Guinea. Now we want to go to Mozambique. Okay. How come that one? Okay. Here you go.
All right. So it's my turn again. So usually, I was dealing with the children. Those are our neighbors. The girl, her name is Lena. The brother in black is Leo. And the little one, I forgot his name. They are our neighbors, and so after some time being around them there, I it was a little bit hard to start getting in contact with people there. At the village, like we are the only ones different there, so people would come to us. But in town, Mozambique was a different story. So people have the boundaries around their homes and everything. So like on the street, people would say hi, hi, but not much of getting into their lives. So the Lord gave me an idea that I was thinking everybody like to eat. So I started baking cakes and bringing to my neighbors, introducing myself and say like, I'm your neighbor. And so anyway, so we started building a relationship with them. And Lena's family was one of the families that they lived across the street from us. And the parents didn't have much interest in spiritual things, but Lena did. So on Sabbath afternoon, I would go to her house and we'd give Bible study to her and her brothers. Um, and then sometimes we'd take them to church too, when the parents allowed them to do it. This was another Bible study. The young girl in black, her name is Maninha. She was 17 years old, and she was the one that came to me and asked for Bible studies. It was kind of like she had seen me at Linda's house; they were related, and then she said, "I'd like to have Bible studies too. Can you come and teach me?" And I don't know if you guys perceived, but like in where I used to live, people's homes are different. They build like a little building. They have like a yard. One little building is the bedroom, the other one is a kitchen, the other one is something else. So they don't have a living room. So when someone comes to the house, they bring the chairs outside. So we sit underneath the trees and we visit and do whatever. So the Bible studies were always done outdoors. And it was sometimes you had to really focus because there were like people walking and other things like that. But it was a blessing. I still keep, until today, I keep sending to Mania a devotional on every Sabbath morning. Every Sabbath morning, I send to her a little message and I say Happy Sabbath. By the time that we left Mozambique, she was almost to the point of getting to baptism, but we had to leave ahead of time, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on. But I keep praying for her. And with going to churches too, same thing in churches, most of them, they only had one building, like one room, and sometimes during the Sabbath school lessons we have to divide, and the kids would go outside and we'd have find a tree or something, put something to sit there, and tell them stories of the Bible, and then they on their own they would tell the story to other children. We also had a group of younger people. They're called Calebs, like from Caleb. This program started in Brazil. So young people during the summer time vacation, instead of just doing nothing, they get together, they go camping, they decide a different place, a different town that they don't have any church yet. And the first time that they went there, they went to a place called Yamashasha. They didn't have churches at all there. So we got this tent, big tent, and the Calebs, they would come and they would camp around there. And their camp was very simple, very, very simple, and they would stay there for 3 weeks, giving Bible studies during the day in a hot sun, going from house to house, giving Bible studies.
And that's hundreds of Bible studies a day.
And then in the evening, they would come back and they would have the evening program. So those kids are brave. There was not
We'd
much.
have like 80 young people all going to multiple houses a day.
And not much to eat, but they're always smiling and not complaining and just having fun preaching the gospel. They would bring people to those tents, and they would do presentations in the afternoon, and end of afternoon and in the evening. They also would distribute clothes, reaching out to the community, and then would help them with those kind of things. And like David was saying, the people that you get in contact the most, the one that you spend the most time, are those the people that you're more successful to help them to learn God. Sometimes we gave many books to people, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to know. It's just planting seeds, but you don't know much what's going to happen. And something interesting that you used to do too, they used to do, the local hospital, they knew that the Calebs were very willing to donate blood. So they would come to church, they would put their seats outside there, the hospital would bring the seats and the nurses, and then you donate your blood underneath the trees. And it was like a way of testimony that we as Seventh-day Adventists, we don't only care for our own people, but we love the others. That was a simple way of cooking. This is making food for like 80 Calebs, like, can you imagine cooking like that? But they did, and they were happy, and in the end of each program, they would have baptism. And to go to baptism, this is the transportation. The ones that they could go, they would just get in the back of the pickup truck and go to baptism. And and baptize, and then they would come back and have some food to eat in the evening. And it was, like I said, it was very simple, but they were glad for that. So now David's gonna.
Okay. So, um, this is Fernando. I met him at the Kalebi, at the big evangelistic tent. Um, I was in Mozambique and didn't speak the Portuguese. I knew I needed to get a Portuguese teacher, and I was just trying. I was observing all the young men and seeing who it would be that I would choose to ask to be my teacher. And for some reason, God led me to Fernando. And I thought, I'll ask him. And he eventually accepted to become my teacher in Portuguese. And we became real close. His father was absent, and so I become like a father to him. That was really exceptional for me. And he became very close in other ways, but I'll touch on that in a few minutes. In Mozambique, why is that out of order? Okay, you want to talk, say something about this one?
So look at the time here. This is Fiago. So we are trying to reach people in Mozambique, like giving them Bible studies, but also giving them things that they need, like real things. And Fiago became, he's a crippled man. He's like when he's 40 years old, even though he looks older. He used to live in South Africa and found out that he had tuberculosis in the bones, and so they couldn't walk much anymore. He came home, and this was his kitchen. And he couldn't walk much, but he was cooking. So with every month, David and I would visit him and bring some food and some other things. And interesting, let me see, that even though he knew how to read, the tuberculosis was taking his vision away. He couldn't see much, couldn't read much anymore. So we gave him a little radio with USB card that had the Bibles and hymns and some other things for him to listen in sermons, and he was able to do that. But Fiago was so interested in those things, he became a missionary himself. Would bring those books, literature books, like small ones about family, some other things, and he said, give a bunch of them to me, leave it here. So because a lot of people that I know, they come here, they visit me, I'm gonna give those books to them, and they would get to know the Lord too. And he did. And each time that I would visit him, would bring the physical food, but also would bring the spiritual food for him to share to other people.
And what's interesting is that Fiago actually lives on government land because he is so poor, didn't have any land, and it's right next to the hospital. And so he gets to talk to everybody who comes through there. He'll start telling about Jesus to them. He became a missionary through all of these sermons he was listening to and through the hymns that he was listening to. Now, this is a church called Agostino Neto, and we got to know this church because someone pointed out, oh, there's a little Adventist church. If you look over on the corner, see that little leaf building? That leaf building was the church, and it had no windows. It was so dark in there, you couldn't even read your Bible. But they were meeting in there, and so one of the things we wanted to do was strengthen the church, and so we provided the materials through AFM, through the donations. We provided the materials, and they built this church. And we did this over and over again in multiple of the churches, and it just like giving fertilizer, because they grew and grew and grew. They were so excited from the help. And this is also where we met Julio. And Julio was special because he came up to us and to the president of AFM and said, I want to become a pastor. Can you help me? And so that started off something that was really became our most favorite thing in Mozambique. And I will explain that in a couple of minutes. Here's another one of the little churches that we were able to help them with the materials, and they built it. Um, and here's another lady. What is her name, sweetie?
Vovó Laura.
Vova Laura, yeah. She's totally blind. And she lives alone. And the government sometimes would give them, it was like $20 a month, which is nothing. And so we learned of her. And so we also started to give her food. And to support her, we got the local church members to visit with her, to start giving her, and they started giving her Bible studies. And we built her a new house so she wasn't getting wet every time it rained. And there she is getting baptized. And this happened after we left. And this is Raphael. He's a neighbor about a quarter of a mile from our house, and we heard that actually one of our other neighbors said, "Have you heard of Raphael?" And we went there. He had been living in this house for many years that had no roof. A hurricane had gone through there and totally destroyed it. In fact, there was a tree growing in the house, in the living room. It was, and so we actually put a roof on the house, or actually on one of the rooms of the house, and we gave him a door he could lock, a bed, and a mosquito net. He had been living in squalor. He was one of the homeless people. We had to track him down on the street many times. He had no food. And we also learned that he was actually baptized not long ago. During the COVID lockdowns, you can see the mask on our faces. The churches were closed. So we met in our homes. And we grew. The church grew. Multiplied, actually. Because we were home and the neighbors would see. Well, here I was having a Revelation class on my front porch. And the young man that's at the front there, he actually became baptized from this Revelation class. How many of you know about Stephen Bohr? Yeah, I was showing him this. I was showing him Stephen Bohr. We talk about it.
They knew English.
Yeah, these are some of the young men who knew some English. So I was able to really talk to them, the materials. You know, one of the things that is in these countries around the world, they're lacking in materials. We had nothing to study. No materials in which to give revelation seminars or anything. It doesn't mean they don't exist. It means that they're not accessible because they're too expensive. And they're not available. So, wow, this was fun for me. And through this process, Julio and Fernando responded to our call for anyone who wanted to become Bible workers. And these two, the one who had said they wanted to become a pastor, and then my Portuguese teacher. He is the one that was in my house the most. And I have seen that the more of time you interact with people, when they're in your house or when you're in their house, when you're eating meals together, these are the people who respond to the gospel. I have given out thousands, literally thousands of books and tracts and pamphlets. We don't really know what has happened to any of those. But we can we can say with assurance that the people we're showing you here today have all responded through personal interaction. They've gone the next step and the step after that. And many of these, like these two young men, they are now, right now, in college to be pastors.
Mm-hmm.
They have brought together congregations and have brought, I don't know how many. It's probably it is many now to Christ. We began to teach them. They didn't know much of anything. Fernando was Catholic. He had just become a Christian, and Julio, the one there, the other one, he was, his father had two wives. He was of the second wife. He was not a believer at all. He tells a story of how he used to love eating pork and the pigs, and he knew that he couldn't join the church and still eat the pork, and it took him 2 years, and he had to get sick from eating the pig before he would give his heart to God and say, no more. I'm going to submit my life to you. And he went all the way now. Again, our classes were held in our front porch. We went through Christ object lessons. There's so much material there to learn about becoming soul winners. And they were also writing Bible studies in Portuguese that all the church members were beginning to use. Mm-hmm. And since we created it, we didn't have to pay for them. We just print them. And here is Fernando giving his first sermon. You know, these boys, I wanted to show you, these boys had nothing. We bought them the suits. We bought them the suit jackets, the pants, the shirt, the tie, so they could look the part. They were so happy. They were so willing, so eager to work for God. I think this is one of our last pictures here. This is the Mashasha Church, which is the one that Fernando and the Calebis was raised up. Mm-hmm. And this is the Pathfinder Club that's there now. These are those who were baptized. This is this church structure that now has a roof on it. It was being built when we left, and we see that it's got a roof on it, and it probably has doors and everything on it now too. This is in Mobile. This is where Julio worked, and he also raised up a congregation. And see the tent there? They met in a tent before they met under the tree, then graduated to the tent, and the tree right now is the Sabbath school. And now they have a church building. And it's amazing what can be done if we would just provide the cost of the materials. They'll do the labor. I think these churches cost less than $2,000 each. And there's a baptism there in Mobile. So that's the end of my pictures. What is the point that I want to make today? You know, we as a church have been wanting to shine our light, to cast our net to our community. And as we were putting these pictures together, what do you think is some of the effective ways of reaching people with the gospel? What was that? Personal. Personal relationship, contacts. literature is great, but it's so impersonal. I think that's why we like to do it, because it's impersonal. But it's not as effective, in my opinion. Of course, not everyone is ready to take a Bible study right off, but we need to find those who are ready. And also, I want to point out the vast majority of the people that when we identified them as truly being in need, when we supplied their needs as a Christian, over a matter of months, they sought the Lord and came to Him. Almost 100%. So what can we learn from this, my brothers and sisters? I couldn't hear you. I think we need to learn better how to meet people. You're right, Sandy. I think maybe we need to rethink some of our playbooks. Like I said, we just need to be be willing to be made available. You know, Edie and I, we went overseas, but now we're here. This is now our mission field. And I'm thinking, it's like, you know, we really do need to be a little more proactive now among our own people. And sometimes it's hard when you're not the missionary. I want to end with a verse. If you turn in your Bibles to Matthew 25, verse 31, I'm going to read a few verses here. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, and the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom, prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And listen to what he says. And this is a lesson. For I was hungry, and you what? You gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, you clothed me. I was sick, you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we hungry, or fed thee, or thirsty, and you gave you something to drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and we took you in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw ye sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? And you know what he said. And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, insomuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. And I noticed, by going through my pictures, it was the very ones that was the recipients of this type of work who responded the best to the gospel. Thank you so much.